from betting weekly. Because we win, that is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best, and we're successful. Come watch our show. Bed Rivers sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Welcome in, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It is Friday, the 20th of June. You're with Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Loads of things on the card today. Continual coverage of the Club World Cup. We preview all of today's games, plus our best bets from the weekend in that competition. A little bit of under-21 Euro Championships as well. James, welcome in. It's good to see you. This is a lot different to those cold, dark nights in the Europa League in winter. How are you doing?
It certainly is, Steve. I'm doing very well, thank you. It's great to be on the show. It's my first appearance since the Club World Cup kicked off. So you're right. Listen, different teams, different weather outside the window here in the United Kingdom and in other parts of the country. And I think a fascinating tournament. I don't know what the people in the chat think about this, but we're about a week into the Club World Cup now. Such a talked about competition. Lots to get into with the specific games today and also how it's going generally. And really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've had loads of comments already, even before we went live. C. Bills says he's loving the summer of football up here in Canada. Big game for Chelsea today. Go Blues. So he says Byron is going to the match today. He's got volunteer duty. Bearbrick, good to see you. Everyone's kind of getting more excited as this competition goes on, James. I think at the start of it, there was a lot of doubts. I think the expectation was the European sides would just simply be too strong.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case, has it? I mean, these South American sides in particular have been excellent. And, we can't really start without talking about the big shock yesterday. PSG getting beaten 1-0 by Botafogo. Someone actually did have $300 on Botafogo money line at 16-1 against PSG. I don't know when they got on the 16, but a huge winner there. And I mean, a big surprise to me. Fair play to Botafogo. What is the sort of the fallout from the PSG camp from that defeat?
Yeah, well, it was a surprise, I think, certainly to the media in France. Everything was going well for PSG. We didn't know going into the tournament what shape they would be in. And then they had that 4-0 winner of Atletico Madrid. Everything looked good. The mood in the camp is very good. I quite like the way Luis Enrique, the manager, has organised this tournament as regards time off. We hear that the players are training in the morning for PSG and getting a lot of time off in the afternoon because they got to have a break sometimes. So it's a nice balance that they've got, but it obviously didn't work against Botafogo last night. They lost the game 1-0. They didn't play particularly well. I think it's the first signs of fatigue from a team who obviously played really deep into the regular European League season. That Champions League final against Inter was May the 31st. Then let's not forget, a lot of their players have had international fixtures. So I think it's just caught up with them. I mean, we were talking off air, Steve. You said maybe a wake-up call. I think that's a really good way of putting it. So it's just another reminder that the European sides are, I'm not saying struggling in this tournament, but they're finding it tough for a variety of reasons. It's obviously come at the end of a very long season for them. Producer Troy was making a great point off air before we started the show about just the time difference. We all know about the time difference for the European sides having to fly across the Atlantic. But the Brazilian teams who are doing really well, they're obviously finding it a bit easier to acclimatise. The time differences are shorter as well. So I think what we saw with that Botafogo win is that the Brazilian sides for me have been the big positive of the tournament so far, that the quality they've shown, their motivation levels are very good. And obviously they're enjoying great support in the stands as well from fans who have traveled from Brazil for the tournament. So it's now looking really competitive. And listen, we're still in the group stage, but I'm already really excited about what we're going to see when we get to the knockout phase, because I think everything's a little bit more competitive and a little bit closer than we were expecting it to be.
Yeah, I would agree. I think certainly the last 3 or 4 days in particular, things have got a lot closer. So welcome in anyone who's new to chat. Then great to see you. Put down your best bets in for today or the weekend, and do just consider subscribing to the channel and liking to the channel. Keep doing that. You'll get appearances from Kit Kat, who hasn't been on Paying Weekly Live for some time. It's too hot for cats today here. But if you could like and subscribe, that'd be great. And also a special edition of the Betting Weekly Insider. One of the 2 newsletters we have is set to be released today. This is one not to be missed. I've had a good look through this, and we're actually having a look already, an early sort of preview of some of the main European leagues coming up this season. The early bird catches the worm and everything, James. You're involved with it. I'm involved with it. Paul, you've done a great job with this newsletter, so absolutely do subscribe to that. Well worth your while if you've not already. It's a fantastic read, actually. We need to crack on though into today's game, and I think there's already been a comment about the Benfica match against Auckland, and I mean there's no odds actually offered on the money line. That's how set in stone the result is. It's more a question of how many goals are Benfica going to score, what is their margin of victory going to be, and I mean the minute the Asian handicap line I think is 5.25 on Benfica, around about minus 114. I mean, I really am struggling to see how this is not a big win for the Portuguese team.
Yeah,
goal difference could be really, really important in this group if Bayern win all their games. So, James, do you give Auckland City any chance of keeping this close today?
No, none at all, Steve. I've got to say, I watched the game last week, the Bayern Munich win over Auckland. It was unbelievably one-sided. For anybody that didn't see it, it was as one-sided, if not more so, than that final scoreline of 10-0 suggested. And I'm not saying Benfica will score 10, but what I am saying is they could score 10. They could score 7, 8, or 9. I think they've got every reason to believe it can be done now that they've seen Bayern do it. They've got every reason to want to go out there and prove a point. So I think you've mentioned the Asian handicap line there, and you've said you can't bet on the money line. So anybody looking for a selection on who's going to win the game will be leaning towards the Asian handicap line. I think the value is with Benfica here. They're my pick on the Asian handicap. You can get Benfica with a -5 goal start at minus 134. Certainly you could earlier today. I think it's moved to maybe nearer minus 140 now. But I would take that all day, because the way I look at that, Steve, is the only way you can lose is if Benfica win the game by 4 goals or fewer. So -4. I think if Benfica won 4-0, they would have underachieved on the day. So that's why I think Benfica -5 on the Asian handicap is worth taking. I think you might get your stakes back there, but as I say, it was so one-sided when Auckland played Bayern Munich. I think Benfica will be really confident, and if you're Auckland City, I don't think you can play any different or do any better. I just don't think they've got the players to do any better. They showed their standard. That's not being disrespectful to them. They're playing against some of the top teams in the world here. So how can they do any better? I don't really see a way that they can. So I think if you are looking for how to play the Asian handicap, I see no reason to support Auckland City. You might look at it and think, oh, well, as long as they don't lose 6-0, I'm going to make a profit on the Asian handicap around evens. I just don't see the point in that. I think, as I say, the other way is more likely. So my pick would be Benfica -5 on the Asian handicap. I think you'll get a really good run for your money. Saw the comment there from Dan Roebuck. Great to have him in about the lines moved. Do keep an eye on that as we edge towards kickoff. I mean, I think it might move again a little bit in the final hour before the game, but I think Benfica is the way to play, Steve. I saw another comment about shot on target picks. I do have some shot on target picks coming up, but just wondered if you have a view on that as well, because I think Benfica are really good value here.
I mean, there's plenty of comments in here. I'm interested that Foxy says he's going under 6.5 goals, and Real Brendan King has got an SGP. He's regretting it. He's got Benfica under 7.5 goals in it. Do you know what? I think this might surprise you, James. That Auckland City are going to get murdered here. Yeah. I think they're in big trouble, because Benfica, it's well worth their weight in gold to rack up the score. And I don't think that Bayern even played anywhere near what they're capable of in the first game. It could have been 15-16 if Bayern really wanted it. Now, the interesting thing is Bayern, of course, were -4.5 on the Asian handicap. Benfica now, you can get a -5 on the Asian handicap at -137. -5.25 is at -114. Some might say, well, hold on a minute, Bayern are better than Benfica, so how can Benfica be a bigger handicap? I think the thing was that the first handicap in the initial game in the first place was wrong. -4.5 was nowhere near the right handicap, and it's hard to handicap on big lines sometimes.
So exactly. And I was going to say, Steve, as well, it's so many factors I think were contributing to why that line was wrong, and we can call it wrong now. One is, you're right, it's the difference in class between the sides makes it difficult. Two, they're not two sides that ever play against each other, and three, it's a new tournament, so they are playing against each other in a new format. Very difficult to get right. Obviously throws up opportunities to beat the market if you get your view right and you call it right. So that's absolutely why it's moved. It's now probably a better reflection of the value of the two teams. You're not going to get huge value on Benfica with the Asian handicap, but I think that's what's happened there. I should say my shot on target pick, I've got a couple on this game which I think are great, and I did see somebody in the comments there is thinking along similar lines to me with a certain Benfica player, so we can come on to that as well, I think.
I just want to talk about the corners line before we go. I think Benfica will naturally rack up a lot of corners here. The goalkeeper actually for Auckland didn't have a terrible game, I didn't think, against Bayern. That sounds incredible to say when they lost 10-0. Made a few saves. He looked like he had the sort of keeper who will, turn the ball behind the post rather than pushing it out or tipping it over the bar. Benfica over 9.5 corners for them looks like a good bet here to me. And you could even thinking about laddering that to maybe 10.5, 11.5 corners. They're going to dominate everything. Every metric you want in the world here, it's going to be Benfica. We talk about player props in terms of, I've just noted now, I didn't expect him to start actually. But a player that does interest me is Kerem Aktoglu. You might do a better job of pronouncing the Turkish international. This guy does like a shot. Over 1.5 shots on target for him is at -177 though, which is a bit on the tight side. But do watch out for him. He likes to shoot wildly. What are your player props for the game, James? I'm just going to very quickly answer the question from Meninda there about Paris. Do I have any recommendations? Meninda, I'm not actually the best person for beer stops in Paris. I've spent an awful lot of time in Paris, but mainly in the suburbs, about an hour out from Gare du Nord, where all the good footballers are. So I don't have many, but you can do a lot worse, I think, than the cafes opposite the exit to Gare du Nord with the tables outside. I think they're as good as anywhere. So that would be my tip if you're looking for a drink. But on the player props on Benfica, the comment was about Otamendi that I saw. This is my pick of the day. It's Otamendi for Benfica against Auckland, over 0.5 shots on target at +135. I think it is a great price. Otamendi over 0.5 shots on target, +135. Couple of reasons why. The first is he scored in that first game for Benfica. If anybody saw the goal, it was a really good header from across into the box. The second reason is we know Auckland are going to give up a stack of chances here. I think they conceded 17 shots on target against Bayern Munich. Again, it might not be quite as high this time, but we know Benfica are going to have lots of chances. And the third is, if you watched Auckland, they really struggled in the air against Bayern when Bayern got their deliveries right. You had Kingsley Coman scoring early in that game with a header, and it felt there were a couple of really well-worked set pieces from Bayern because they knew that Auckland were going to be struggling in the air. So I think anybody looking for a shot on target pick, Otamendi over 0.5 here for Benfica at +135 it's way too big for me because I think he's going to be a real threat. My second player to look out for in the shot on target market would be Di Maria. I think over 1.5 shots on target on Di Maria at -130 is a really good shout. Will he not manage 2 shots on target in the game? We know he's starting. I think he probably will. Could be on penalties and will obviously be dangerous in open play. So, we saw the talented players, didn't we, from Bayern have a field day at times against Auckland. Shots coming in from all angles and different players. So I think Otamendi over 0.5 shots on target, Di Maria over 1.5 shots on target. You're going to have a real good chance there. Question there coming in from Noah. Do I see first half over 3 goals? I'm not a huge player of the over
goals market in the first half, I'm never really confident enough about how a team will play. So I tend to stick to the 90 minutes. So not quite sure on that one, Noah, but I do think over the course of the game, Benfica will be winning this by a really big margin.
Just take Benfica minus 2.25 first half on the Asian line if you like goals in the first half. Someone did ask if Auckland City are going to score in this tournament. One thing I did notice against Bayern, they actually left a few players up front hoping for a counter-attack. But I just don't really... You couldn't trust them to score. So I would certainly be going with Benfica goals in the first half. The handicap is minus 2.25. That probably, at worst, is going to half lose. It could be the sort of game in the second half, though, where Benfica really explode, where they've got fresh legs off the bench and all sorts of things like that. It is worth mentioning again, and Matt Locke had a bit of a maybe a jokey comment earlier, but these are amateur players. They are not even semi-professional footballers. They're out of their depth completely. They're in the tournament because they are the highest ranked team from the coefficient in Oceania. FIFA have to include them. It's an inclusive tournament, but they really are out of their depth. So we're all, I don't think there's too much love for Auckland City here. A few are biting on the under. There is a $2,000 play on under 8.5 goals here at minus 325. Which I just couldn't take that. Not a minus 325 because this could. I'll put it out there. I think this could be double digits again. I really do. If it probably 9-0 is going to be my prediction. But if it went double digits, I'm not going to be stunned. Yeah. This is night and day between the two teams. Yeah. So several bets there in the game. We're looking to get involved with Benfica for sure. The second game of the day. Now this is a really interesting clash. Flamengo against Chelsea. This match is taking place. The venue, I've forgotten the venue. I'll find it soon. My notes have all gone here. Philadelphia is where this is being played out. There's a heat advisory warning in that area. This could be an interesting match. Chelsea plus 117 on the money line. Flamengo plus 270. The ties at plus 220 as well. Before a ball was kicked in this group, I had a feeling that Flamengo certainly would maybe push Chelsea close. Wouldn't surprise me if they topped the group. And, based on what we've seen of these South American teams, James, plus 270 on Flamengo, is that a little bit disrespectful?
Yep, I think so. Too big, certainly. I think I was a bit surprised when I saw it because I think Flamengo, first of all, they did well in their first game, which they won. But secondly, they've come into this tournament in good form anyway. People may not follow the Brazilian top division that closely, but they've made a very good start in that domestic league this season. They're top of the table. And I think if you look through their starting lineup, if we were to presume they'd play their strongest lineup tonight, I think there's players in their team who would get into the Chelsea team. There's players. Ortiz at the back, he's a very good defender. Darius Chiesa was on the list there. He's a really clever and exciting player to watch who can score goals and create goals. There's plenty of quality in this side. And I just feel that some of the factors that you and I and Troy, the producer, were talking about off air as well, play into Flamengo's hands, namely that they're going to have very good support, we think, in the stands. That we know South American sides historically have always treated the tournaments or the one-off games against European teams in various incarnations of the Club World Cup and the Intercontinental Cup very seriously anyway. So we always felt the Brazilian sides would take it seriously. And I just feel the fact that they're coming into this relatively fresh, but also match hardened because they're sort of a quarter of the way through their league season. It's almost a perfect time for them to be playing in a big tournament. So I think Flamengo have got a really good chance of being competitive here and making it, I think, a slightly closer game than those odds would suggest, though. So my pick on this game is on Flamengo on the Asian handicap. You can get them plus 0.5 Asian handicap at minus 136. And obviously with that pick, you're going to make a profit if they win or if the game ends in a draw. It's essentially like the Flamengo or tie pick, which a lot of people might prefer. It's just that at the moment, the Flamengo plus 0.5 Asian handicap is better odds. So, I think, listen, they've looked good individually as a side. The Brazilian teams in general have done very well. They've won 4 and drawn 2 of their 6 matches so far. And, they've shown they can compete with the European sides. They've kept clean sheets, have Brazilian teams so far against, obviously, PSG last night, but also Dortmund, Fluminense, drew that game 0-0, and Palmeiras, have done well as well. So there's lots of reasons to suggest it will be a bit closer than that market line would indicate. And I think the clever play at the moment on the prices, as long as they don't move too much, would be to side with Flamengo here rather than Chelsea.
Yeah, I would agree in that Flamengo look too generous in terms of the odds here. Welcoming everyone. There's been so many comments today. I'm not going to go through half of them, but good to see Noah Goodman, Pat Murray as well, Ian Lights Out. Greetings to you. Dan Roebuck, of course. He's going to be jumping for joy if Benfica deliver a big win today in 40 minutes time kickoff now. Duncan cannot escape that Andorra versus England match. And that was only 1-0. And I do get that, but I think international soccer can sometimes be a bit different. If Benfica just had to win this game, right, and goal difference was not going to be a factor at all, I'd be a bit more skeptical on the Asian handicap. But every goal could matter in this group for them. Yeah. I think that's what I can't get out of my head. This game, I really like the under. I really like under goals, and the bet that I am going to take in it is under 2.25 goals at -136. I was hoping for under 2.5 goals at the same odds. I'm not going to lie, but I totally understand why this is the line. I think Chelsea's defense is sneaky good, and when it's at full strength, the lad that they got from Fulham on a free toss-in. I think he's been an excellent signing. Reece James, I think, is excellent when he's on good form. And this is an underrated defence. I mean, when Mal Gusto came on the other day, it started to look a bit dodgy, things like that. But I do believe this Chelsea team, and probably going into the Premier League season as well, is under the radar, sneaky good defensively. And they showed in the game against LAFC. I know it was LAFC. But I think they're quite a controlled outfit under Maresca. He's a good head coach. There really is it's a difficult job, and he's done very, very well there. So I think they can. I think a tie could be very possible in this game, and it's hot conditions as well in Philadelphia, around about 30 degrees Celsius, late 80s. Humidity I think is going to be there, so I don't think it's going to be a fast-paced game. I think both sides would take a draw and move on really. So I like the under. You like the handicap on Flamengo. You also like a player prop in this game.
Yes, I do. I've obviously had those shot on target picks on Benfica. I've got one on Flamengo. It's Gerson over 0.5 shots on target at +240. Now, I think that's a really big price on Gerson, who, again, people who don't know him, he's a midfielder who likes to get forward. He can play as a sort of a centre midfielder, but he really has license to move really from that position into more attacking positions in the final third. And I like it. I think +240 is too big given the way I think he's going to play here. Now, there are players in the Flamengo side I think are more likely to manage a shot on target. I mentioned De Arrascaeta, who scored in the first game, I really like him as a player, and he'd obviously be, I think, more likely to manage a shot on target or a goal in the game. It's really about the price here, because Gerson is a standout big price among the attack-minded players, I think, who are likely to start for Flamengo. They're generally around even money. De Arrascaeta in the same over 0.5 shot on target market. It's minus money, which I think makes sense. But Gerson +240 to me just looks too big. He managed a shot on target in their first game against Esperance de Tunis. And I think he'll like his chances of finding a bit of space here and trying to get into shooting positions, which is what he's good at. So, again, as I say, he's not someone he's not a shot monster who's going to manage 3 or 4 in a game, but I do think +240 is a big price. So he would be my player prop on the match. That's Gerson for Flamengo over 0.5 shots on target.
C. Bill says 1-1 or 1-0 to Chelsea. I think there was a couple in the chat who do like Chelsea here. Foxy says he likes the look of a card for Enzo. And also both teams to score no. G. Davis, I agree with you. I think both would be happy with a draw in this one. Biggest bet on the game is actually on Chelsea corners, over 4.5 corners at -112. They're not a team that actually are on my radar for corners. They cut inside way too much. Whoever plays on that right, Neto or Palmer, always come inside. Madueke, and he's a frustrating player, by the way. I don't know whether there's a player in him or not, James. But he's another one. Wherever he plays on the field, he's cutting inside. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get corners that way, but I would much rather back teams that try and stretch a game. more old-fashioned way with wingers, which doesn't happen too often these days, actually.
Yeah.
But in terms of the money, 71% of the money on the money line on Chelsea, 53% of the over-under money is on the over. So that is pretty split, really. It's a suggestion. Actually, the bettors are more keen on the under because we know how much money goes into the over. If you thinking draw here then overall, or would you give Flamengo if they won? Would you be shocked?
A little bit, yeah. I think I'd make Chelsea favourites. Yes, I would go on the draw personally. I'm not going to say the most likely outcome, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think the way that Brazilian teams generally have defended, I tend to see this as an unders game as well, because they do look pretty solid to me at the back, all of them, Flamengo included. So I think it might be a tight, close game rather than an exciting open one.
See, Byron says there, 85 degrees, slight breeze, no humidity, perfect weather, and that will help Chelsea. That's hot. That is really hot for here for English teams. Trust me. Yeah. And whatever humidity it is, believe me, that'll be more than what they're used to. So, I mean, for you, that's a cold day, Baron. But for us, that is a melting pot. So, Chelsea, that is an advantage for Flamengo, definitely for me, the weather. Byron says, if you like Flamengo draw double chance and under 2.5, it's plus 110. Not bad. Yeah, not terrible at all. Okay. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks for so many comments today. Remember, if you're new to the channel, if you could like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. LAFC against Esperance de Tunis. Yes. Got to be honest, this game, I don't have really anything here myself. I looked at the money line odds and I thought it was pretty fair. I think Inter Miami's win yesterday might just give the MLS teams a bit of a boost. And you know, LAFC, this match isn't played in LA. It's being played in Nashville, and this is going to be hot in Nashville, by the way. A lot hotter than Philadelphia. They are kind of on home territory. Obviously, they would have played here before and know what it's all about. So, and I didn't think LAFC were terrible against Chelsea either. So if they win the game, I'm not going to be completely surprised. Esperance de Tunis. What did you make of them in the first game, James? I know you've got a very interesting player you're going to talk about here for us.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't have strong views on this. I felt it was slightly difficult to get a read on either side in those first games where they were both underdogs, and you know the game went to form and they both lost those games. And I think if you look at some of the stats on those defeats that they suffered, I think they reflected the difference in quality. Esperance losing 2-0 to Flamengo. I think Esperance's XG was only 0.24 in the game. And then Los Angeles FC obviously lost 2-0 to Chelsea. They were under 1 XG in the game, and Chelsea were over 2. So kind of went to form, really, in both cases, and I think it makes it quite difficult to know what we'll get here. What we do know is that both teams are going to go for the win, having lost their opening matches. Will that lead to an open game? Well, it should do. Will it lead to lots of goals? Not necessarily, because I'm just not quite sure the quality's there. Looking at the prices, again, I don't really have a strong view on the money line, but I do quite like the look of unders, which is close to even money on this match, minus 106 at the moment. Minus 124 on under 2.5 goals. Not bad, really, because it's not been a hugely open tournament in terms of goals. You may want to have a look at both teams to score no, which I think has paid out in 12 out of 20 games so far. So that's my view on the game generally. I'm not quite sure which way we'll go, but I tend to lean towards unders rather than overs. But my pick on the game, like you say, Steve, it's actually on a player for Esperance de Tunis. And the player in question is Youssef Belaïli. I think he's a really interesting player, Belaïli, and I think there's a bit of value on him in this game. So for those who don't know him, he's a winger who has been quite frustrating down the years because he can be inconsistent. He's had a few disciplinary problems down the years. He's maybe not made as much of his talent at club level as he might have done, but he can be a man for the big occasion. He was part of the team when Algeria won the African Cup of Nations in 2019, I think it was. And he's kind of the star man, really, for Esperance de Tunis, given his reputation and given his quality. I think overshots for Belaïli on this game is something that people should look at, because in that first game against Flamengo, they had 6 shots on goal in the entire game, did Esperance, and 4 of them were from Belaïli. Now, if you look at his expected goals across those 4 chances, it was tiny. So I think what that tells you is what sort of a player he is. He can be quite individualistic. He can go for the spectacular sometimes, where maybe a passer across to a teammate would be more sensible. But it can work out, and I think that's how he'll approach this game as well. So I think Belaïli over 2.5 shots is worth a look here. Now, this is not shots on target. This is just shots in the game. I think Belaïli over 2.5 at plus 128 is worth a look because, as I say, he's that kind of player anyway. We saw in the first game that he was going to have a go in this tournament. He's going to try and make his mark and stand out. And I think he is their danger man. So if anybody's going to cause trouble for Esperance, it's likely to be Belaïli in the final third because he's the guy with the most ability. So have a look at that if you're looking for a special. As I say, it's not shots on target, which is what I normally look at. It's just shots in the game. I think Belaïli over 2.5 at plus 128 is worth a look, given what sort of player he is and given how he played in the opening game. So for me on this game, that's probably my strongest bet.
Yeah, Youssef Belaïli. I remember his spell at Brest and Ajaccio. He is quite a selfish player, isn't he? Does like to go after himself quite a lot. Yeah. The player I'd be looking at for LAFC is Dennis Bouanga, a man that we both know plenty about. And he's minus 132 for over 1.5 shots on target. He should have scored against Chelsea for me. He'll have enough chances. He doesn't always take them, though. That's the problem. So he would be the player prop that I'd be having a lean towards in this game. And I think LAFC might just nick this, 1-0 sort of territory. I've just got a feeling for them. I think they'll be motivated by that Inter Miami result against Porto. And there's been money for LAFC. 69% of the money and 85% of the tickets on the money line are on them. At the moment, there's 92% of the money on the over. But I'd be careful, like you said, with the overs in this game. Although both might feel like they have to win the fixture. Bayern versus Boca to round off the day. It's a late one over here in the UK. I know a few will be staying up for it, though. Bayern Munich minus 345 on the money line against a Boca team who really show plenty of courage and fight and pluckiness against Benfica. They're nearly 10-1 to win this game. I'm not going to get involved in the money lines here. But I've got to be honest, minus 345 on Bayern in a game they don't actually have to win. But I'm not sure about that myself. Bayern are a very, very good team, but Boca are going to make this match into a complete war zone, I think, James. And let's see how Bayern and Vincent Kompany cope with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was feisty, wasn't it? Like you say, that first game against Benfica, we saw a red card for either side, plenty of fight from Boca, who might be quite disappointed, really, given how well they started that match, that they weren't able to see it out. Maybe that raises a few question marks against their quality or durability over 90 minutes against a top side, and they're playing a better side here in Bayern than they were facing in Benfica. So I understand Bayern being favourites, but that price and the knock-on prices on the Asian handicap on Bayern don't really appeal to me either. It looks, you could argue a bit too short, but even if it's right, I'm not quite sure there's enough reason to back Bayern in this game, given they're in a fairly comfortable position in the group. So, yeah, I'm the same as you, Steve. No strong views on that. I don't actually have a pick on the game. If I were to have a lean, it would be both teams to score yes at minus 113. As I say, it's not a play that's paid out that much in the tournament so far. I think only 8 out of 20 games as we're recording today or broadcasting today. Only 8 out of 20, both teams to score yes has paid out. I do feel this might be one of the more open matches because I think Boca will go for it. We saw that against Benfica, and I mean, it's Bayern, but I think they'll go for it again here. So I think it could be quite open, this, and be a massive shock if Bayern Munich didn't score, wouldn't it, given the quality they've got in their final third, both from the kickoff and also off the bench. So I think both teams to score yes, minus 113 is a pretty decent price, but it's just a lean from me rather than a pick because I find this game, of all the matches we're talking about on the show today, fairly difficult to, not so much to predict, but tie in with the prices and find a really value play.
Yeah, someone's mentioned it already here. Ian Messina, cards. For those who can access them here, the card line is 4.5. And that looks too low to me based on what I saw in the Boca Benfica game. They're just going to make it far too feisty. And the referee in charge is an Iranian referee, Iranian/Aussie nationality, I think he's got. Ali Reza Fagani, very experienced referee, 47 years old. And usually those sort of experienced refs ultimately don't take any nonsense, do they? And even the most lenient ref, as there was in that Benfica game, any normal ref would have dished 10 plus cards. Just the way that they play about it. I don't think it's going to change. Like you said, they're going to have the exact same approach as they had against Benfica. They're going to try and drag, they're going to suck Bayern into this war zone, stop-start, and make it very uncomfortable for them. There's going to be all sorts of antics going on. So I've got to be back in the cards here myself. Several liking Bayern, though. The -1.5 handicap seeming popular with the bettors out there. Dan Roebuck says Kane looks massive if he plays. He'd be keen to get a goal, won't he, after somehow blanking against Auckland City. Real Brandon King saying Bayern win 2-0 as a lean. They will have a lot of possession, that's for sure. But let's see how this one unfolds. But yeah, I'll be looking towards cards and stuff personally. Now heading towards the weekend, then we're going to talk about an under-21 game soon, but we've actually got several games over the weekend in the Club World Cup. We're going to mention a few now. I'm just going to start us off with a fixture: Mamelodi Sundowns against Borussia Dortmund. Lewis Jones' new favourite team, the Sundowns, of course. And I've seen several suggest that they could give Dortmund a bloody nose here and give them a run for their money, especially on the counter-attack. Now, I'm not going to get involved in money lines and stuff, but the corner line looked really low for this game to me. Over 9.5 corners, I think looks like a really good bet in this game. And you can get close to even money on this. It was mentioned on the show, I think it was Embuelo Charles mentioned that the Sundowns do like to shoot a lot and win a lot of corners. What I noticed at the other end is their frequency of conceding corners. They were very happy just to put a simple block on the line against Ulsan and knock the ball behind for a corner. If in doubt, put it out. And they're going to come under significant territorial pressure from Dortmund in this game. So I think Dortmund, Mamelodi Sundowns, over 9.5 corners, really do like that play. It might be my best play of the weekend, actually, in the Club World Cup. Fluminense against Ulsan. This is a game that you have an interest in, James. I just mentioned Ulsan there. It was a 1-0 defeat for them. Fluminense are -315 favourites. Somehow, I mean, they should have beaten Dortmund. They had so many chances, but they just couldn't take them.
Yeah, and I think that might be indicative of the strengths and weaknesses of this Fluminense team, actually. I think they're a good team. Seen a little bit of them, and I think I wasn't that surprised they played well in that game. I just wonder if there's many goals in this team, whether they might be a team who are good up to the penalty area and then fail to convert their chances and their pressure. So for me, Fluminense versus Ulsan, unders is a good play this weekend. It's a lean from me rather than a pick, but I think under 2.75 goals on the Fluminense Ulsan game at -134 is worth a look. They just don't look quite as dangerous in the final third to me as Palmeiras and Flamengo. Botafogo, I sort of hold judgment on that because I've not seen quite as much of them. But I think Fluminense, listen, I think they'll probably win this game against Ulsan. They should win this game against Ulsan, but I think under 2.75 goals at -134 is quite appealing because I can see Fluminense winning it maybe 1-0, 2-0 rather than it being a super high-scoring match at either end of the pitch.
Yeah, I was looking at the -1.25 Asian handicap on Fluminense here, but probably a better bet is maybe Fluminense win 2-0.
Yeah.
This looks like, I mean, if I had to give a score, I'd say 2-0. That just feels sort of right. The 1-0 could be in play as well. But yeah, I think they've got quite a good defense, actually. I mean, Dortmund really didn't have that many major opportunities in the game. And that's a strong Dortmund attack, isn't it? So you got to give them a lot of credit for, holding themselves together there in that game.
Yeah, I think just on that as well, Steve. I mean, not only well organised, but you see people like Thiago Silva at this tournament who are, obviously towards the end of their careers now, but massively experienced players and take games or all big tournaments really seriously. I think for the guys from Brazil who are in the same sort of boat as Thiago Silva, they've had big success in Europe and they're coming into this with the Brazilian side. To me, so far, they've looked really up for this tournament. So really hungry. And as I said earlier, I think physically, probably in as good a shape you can be, I think, with just having played sort of a third or a quarter of their domestic league. So I think they'll be difficult to break down here. And playing Ulsan, obviously, it's a weaker opponent than Dortmund. I think they've got a pretty good chance of keeping a second clean sheet here.
Real Brandon King asked me, should I be nervous about the Kane total goal spot 4.5? I mean, obviously, that's not the start we wanted, Real Brandon King. but he can still definitely score plenty of goals in this tournament. Kane is capable of scoring a hat-trick against anyone in the world. Genuinely, he's that good. And yeah, I think, I mean, Dan was on about the price earlier, if it's worth backing. If he starts, I think he's got to be motivated in this game. And remember, he's on penalties, and we saw Boca. We're getting buying penalty might be a good bet in that game, actually. I could see them bring them down. Ian Messina, Scandinavian football does return after top leagues after a 3-week break. I'm definitely not going to be getting stuck in after such a long absence in games, though. A lot of things can change in that period. There's been transfers away from the club. I think Rosenborg, for example, lost one of their key players, Marius Broholm, and Sver Nipan. I think Man City are sniffing in the hunt for him. Not exactly sure who's buying him, but be careful with these. The transfer window coming up close. There's some more games for the weekend. We've not actually got it on there, but Juventus impressed you, didn't they? In their first match, James. They had a very convincing win. Producer Troy was at that game, I do believe, as well. You think they can kick on from that really big win? 5-0, wasn't it, against Al-Ain, and deliver
it was. Yeah, I think they can kick on from it, and they're playing Wydad this weekend. I think Juventus minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap on this game is worth a look at minus 124, because I was impressed by them. You know, they were expected to win the game, but the manner in which they played and the way they won the game was impressive. It was an emphatic win. And, yeah, we were messaging earlier, Steve. I think it's something to do with the manager situation at Juventus, is this, because Igor Tudor took over towards the end of the season at Juventus. And I think the timing of that is a factor, actually, in why they played the way that they played in that first game, because he's had a couple of months to get used to his players in Serie A. I think they responded fairly well to him in the final weeks of the season. And this tournament for him, I think, will be really important to sort of shape his squad for the next season. It's almost like a pre-season, if you like, with a competitive edge to it. I think it's almost ideal for a manager to take a look at his players and work out what he's got. And I think for that reason, Igor Tudor will be pushing his players quite hard here, having made a good start. So the mood in the camp should be pretty good anyway. I think it just means that Juventus maybe have a slight edge in terms of competitiveness, in terms of motivation, in terms of just how much focus there will be in the training camp in between games. I think it might just be a little bit sharper than one or two of the other sides who are playing this very much at the end of their seasons after a whole 12 months with their manager. So I quite like Juventus and the way this tournament falls for them timing wise, and put that together with how they played in the first match, which was impressive. And obviously they got the 5 goals. I think minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap this weekend at minus 124 is worth a look, because I would be actually surprised if they didn't win this game by a couple of goals. And if they do win it by a couple of goals, then with a minus 1.5 play on the handicap, then you're going to make a profit.
Yeah, I do agree there. Juventus look very, very good. There's a very interesting piece in the Betting Weekly Insider about Juventus. You have done some of your predictions for the early Serie A predictions for next season in that insider, and I might as well promote it again for those who are new in chat. Just sign up free for the Betting Weekly Insider, a newsletter which is released every single week. We actually have another newsletter that comes out on Monday where we can look at more long-term bets throughout the week. That was a clean sweep of winners. This particular edition, me and Nigel delivered, and there was a void bet with Roy. But this insider, this is a really big edition. We are previewing the top 5 European leagues, early selections for those who want to dive into the futures market on an early basis. I've seen your predictions, James, in France and Italy. I couldn't believe a couple of them, I've got to be honest. I'm not going to reveal anything here, but they might surprise a couple of people. Well, that's good. That's good. That's what it's all about at this stage. We want to put them out there. I did the Bundesliga. I'll give you one guess who one of the teams that I predicted to go down. I think we all know who that's going to be that I would predict. But it's really interesting looking at the early betting markets for Premier League, especially. There's so many markets out already. Yeah, people are looking at that and betting on it, and this is where you can get an edge. Sometimes I'm asleep in June a bit, but a lot more awake on this edition. So do sign up for free. It's a great looking edition.
Loads from there.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. There's one other bet I just want to flag up for the weekend, and this is, I think it's the last game of the weekend. It's 6 p.m. Eastern, I think. Red Bull Salzburg, Al-Hilal. I got burned by the Red Bulls. I back Pachuca. I'm really a big Red Bull fader though, and Al-Hilal I think will beat Red Bull Salzburg this weekend.
Yeah.
Minus 115 on the money line. Look, they gave Real Madrid a really good run for their money. Like a proper, they deserve the draw. Really, they deserve that penalty miss. Put up a really good fight. They've got quality in that team, midfield especially. They can boss the midfield. And they've got experience in there. And this Salzburg squad is the youngest average age in the tournament, which I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, yeah.
And I think it maybe served them well against Pachuca a little bit in that, younger legs, more energy in these sort of sapping conditions. I just think Al-Hilal have got more quality than them. And I'm going to get my money back that I lost in that Pachuca game by backing Al-Hilal here. I'm on Al-Hilal to qualify anyway. So I'm kind of going in, double dipping here, James. All in on Al-Hilal. But I really think, for me, they are definitely the better team over RB Salzburg. And still remember, this Salzburg team only just squeezing the second place in their own domestic league. Yeah, which is pretty damn shocking, really. Gold Cup, there was a question about that. You're not covering the Gold Cup like me.
No, I'm not. So I did see that flash up. Unfortunately, I don't have a view on that. I haven't followed it. I tend to follow the Gold Cup after it's happened, actually, and just look at who played. And obviously, there's a impact on some of the players from Europe who took part. So I find it an interesting competition to sort of reflect on afterwards. But no, I am not following it at the moment.
Yeah, I got done in by Guadeloupe the other night in that, and I spent hours researching them. So I will follow the tournament when it gets into the knockout rounds with more precision. But right now, if you've got any Gold Cup bets, then put it in chat. I think Guatemala are in action. Guadeloupe are playing against Jamaica. If the same Guadeloupe turn up as they did in the first 25 minutes against Panama, Jamaica could be in for a field day. But they were terrible. They made Auckland City look competitive. In the first 25 minutes, Guadeloupe the other day, but eventually I think they lost 5-2. So they did have some goals in them. But we do have a bonus for you here. Under 21 Euro Championships have reached the knockout rounds, and I mean there's several very tasty. Look at these fixtures; these are amazing. Actually really good-looking fixtures, aren't they? Yeah, England against Spain, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Netherlands. And Denmark against France under 21s. Yeah. Now, James Eastham, this is right up your street, isn't it? France under 21s. Yeah. Be kind of foolish to overlook your exceptional knowledge of the French national teams. And you're going to talk us through this game. You're going to talk us through a potential bet in it. Yeah. What are we going to see from the Les Bleus juveniles? Well,
the first thing to say, people may have seen there on the graphic, the goal line is set really high on this game. So you're looking at minus 190 for over 2.5 goals. The goal line around evens is set at under 3 goals. First thing I wanted to say on the game is I think that's fair. I think anyone who's seen the group stages would probably agree that that's fair. Now, France did draw their opening group game 0-0 with Portugal, but since then they've been involved in 2 high-scoring matches against Georgia and against Poland. So there's plenty of evidence of goals at both ends, actually, in France's games. And all 3 of Denmark's group games had 3 goals or more in them. So I think the goal line is fair. I think there's a good chance we will see 3 or more goals in normal time in the game. But yeah, I do have one pick on the game I wanted to flag up. It's in the over 0.5 shot on target market, and it's on the midfielder João Cissé. Now, people may not know João Cissé. He plays for Rennes in League One. He was strangely overlooked during the first half of last season by the 2 managers that Rennes had. He then broke into the team when they appointed a 3rd manager, Habib Bey, who came in for the second half of the season, saw João Cissé in training and liked him and brought him into the side. Really good player, central midfielder. And I think over 0.5 shots on target at plus 128 is a really good bet because João Cissé has just scored 2 goals in France's final group game against Poland. So, you're getting plus money here on him just to have a shot on target after he scored 2 goals. And for anybody that did watch him last season, he he's difficult to judge as a goal scorer in a way, because he does sometimes play quite deep in midfield, but he did score one fantastic goal from long range for Rennes in the second half of last season. I think when he plays a little bit further forward, just centre midfield rather than defensive midfield, you start to see what ability he's got from outside the box with his long range shooting. So I think Jerry Cisse over 0.5 shots on target at plus 128 is too big. You should get a good run for your money there. Should say about France's starting 11, they have changed it around a little bit during the tournament because there's an awful lot of talent in that squad, as there always is. But I think that given that he scored 2 goals in their final group game, there's a very good chance he will start here. So yeah, he would be my play on the game. It's Jerry Cisse over 0.5 shots on target at plus 128. That game taking place on Sunday. But like you've said, Steve, all 4 of these quarterfinals are massive games. 2 games on Saturday, European time, and 2 games on Sunday. Really, really top class fixtures if anybody wants to check out something different this weekend alongside the Club World Cup.
Yeah, France are actually only the 3rd favourites to win this tournament, plus 400. Spain are the favourites. Germany are the 2nd favourites for those who are interested. I've not been really following this tournament apart from a few match reports, but I've got to be honest, these matches do look rather sensational. That's for sure. Joey Cisse, that is your prop play. The way you spell him is Gjaoue Cisse, and yet another incredible talent coming from that Rennes conveyor belt. How they do it. How do Rennes do it, James? Over the years, it's been ever since I followed the French game.
So many, aren't there? Ousmane Dembele came through there. Camavinga came through there. Desiree Doué came through there. They've got the best scouting network from what I saw. I lived in France for some time, in that part of France, which is northwest France. So they managed to retain quite a lot of boys rather than losing them to other clubs. They also pretty good at bringing them in at an early age, sort of 8 or 9. They tend to find them and keep them. So, but I don't know completely because it's an incredible number of top class players they produced. And Jerry Cisse, it's actually broken into the side at Rennes a little bit later than a lot of those other names. He's had to wait his turn, but he looks a really good player. And as I say, if he plays as he did in their final group game, you could be getting a good run for your money in the shot on target market with him.
Brad Brett's Footy, good to see you in chat. And you put up a few bets today. He likes Al-Hilal Salzburg over 3 goals. I agree. I think there's definitely goals in that game. Salzburg do only play one way. That's for sure. And they can be a bit naive at times. Don't think really Pachuca took advantage enough of that. There's a house special today in the Chelsea against Flamengo game. Cole Palmer or Nicholas Jackson to score the first goal at plus 180. For me, Cole Palmer just hasn't been hot enough since Christmas, really. He looks like a man who needs a rest, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I mean, Jackson, to be fair, I think Delap did really well when he came on. I think Liam Delap will become their starter personally, but they really like the contribution that Nicholas Jackson does. Biggest soccer bet yesterday, by the way, was in the Icelandic League. Nearly 20,000 on Valur Reykjavik against IB Vestmannaeyjar, if I pronounced that one correctly. Nearly $20,000 was on that one. We've got several notable live streams today. You can watch 5 Irish Premier Division games for those who are interested. Of course, we've got Rooney against Batista Agut in the ATP London. Like I say, we've got Valencia BC versus Real Madrid in La Liga ACB. So do check out the BetRivers app and website for live streams across loads of sports. If you're new to the channel, like I said, it'd be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're getting really close to 10,000 subscribers. Yes. Thanks so much for your fantastic support over the last 2 years. And we want to get over that line as soon as possible. So that'd be greatly appreciated. The Betting Weekly Insider as well. Do sign up to that on bettingweeklystudios.com. And you get 2 free newsletters each week. But finally, just thanks to chat for the whole week, really, here on Betting Weekly Live. There's been, really fantastic support here. We've endeavoured to cover the Club World Cup in detail, and we keep doing that throughout the whole tournament. This is your place for Club World Cup coverage on Betting Weekly Live. We've got several shows coming up after this. Betting Weekly, Hardball and Fast Break with Doug Kazarian to round off the week here. And Carl Andrew with Paul Hughes on the fighting, the new episode we've got with Fight Talk, I think it's called. So the content just keeps coming thick and fast, James.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're looking forward to reading that Insider when it comes out soon.
Yeah, completely. And I just want to reiterate what you've said about the comments. They make the shows 100 times better. Otherwise, we always like talking football, Steve, but it's great to get people's views. And on the Club World Cup specifically, you've said it, we're going to keep covering it. It's only going to get better. We were talking off air. We haven't quite, we're in the group stage and there's lots going on. We're going to get to the knockout phase and it's going to be even more exciting. So keep tuning in, keep emailing or texting your comments. We love hearing from you, and hopefully people can stick with us and follow all the advice as we get towards the knockout phase.
Yeah, Betting Weekly Fight Live. I think it's scheduled to be released at 1 p.m. Eastern, if it's not already. That is with Kyle Andrew and Paul Hughes. It's been a great addition to the Betting Weekly network. And talking to UFC, Troy's got a pick there to pick of the weekend. Hill versus Roundtree to end in KO, TKO, or DQ at a -200. That is producer Troy, who gets across a lot of sports, as you do know now. Duncan said he'd love to see Boca and River Plate meet in the Club World Cup. That would be absolutely barnstormingly bonkers, Duncan. I don't know how on earth we would preview that. James, it was a lot of fun.
It was. Thank you, Steve.
We look forward to more content from the Club World Cup. Have a great weekend, everyone. Remember to gamble responsibly. But we'll see you next time on Betting Weekly Live.